Welcome to Pub Natter, where we record each episode in a different pub in Rutland, the smallest county in England. In each episode, your hosts, Tim and Justin, give a voice to the landlords and landladies and a special guest with a specific area of interest or expertise. We hope you enjoy our chats, and it encourages you to go and explore our little county and all it has to offer. Like the motto says, there is much in little. The Pub Natter 2024 autumn season is up and running. Did you know that we have an amazing vineyard in Rutland, called appropriately the Rutland Vineyard, which is in Ketton and is producing some delicious wines, reds, rosés and whites. We can vouch for this as we've tasted them. So you'll probably guessed that this episode we visit the Rutland Vineyard, and we chat with Tim Beaver about all things wine related. I know you'll enjoy this one. When rain stops play, it's time for some Pub Natter. So we're in Rutland Vineyard with Tim Beaver. And for those of you that don't know, Rutland Vineyard is just outside Ketton on the way to Barradon. And we're sat in a really nice cafeteria, having a coffee and looking out over the vines. And I will definitely be back. And I'm with Justin. Justin's made his way back from holiday finally.
Oh, several holidays, but yeah, someone's got to do it.
And thank you very much for inviting us here.
Oh, thank you for the nice entrance. I haven't even given you any wine yet, so there we go. You're already a fan. That sounds good.
So let's kick off by just tell us your story. So where did you come from originally, and what were you doing before you entered the world of wine?
Well, being a true farmer, I was born about 2 miles over there, and I've lived for the last 20 years 2 miles over there. So, born and bred Stamford boy. Went up to Newcastle and then lived in Edinburgh a bit as well, and travelled the world, but then came back to the farm in mid-20s to give arable farming a go. So I've been growing wheat for Weetabix. They're very good local buyers. Grow a lot of malting barley as well. So the day job's still 500 hectares of arable farming on the other side of the valley. Half of it's underwater currently. But we did have this field up here, which had lots of little tick boxes, and it was always in the back of my mind. So back in 2021, we converted an arable field overnight into a vineyard.
When you say it was in the back of your mind...
Well, I like wine, so and my wife's half Irish, half Ukrainian, so the plan was this would save me £100 in Waitrose every week in wine bills if we did a vineyard. So Zoe's ultimate skill is she doesn't get a hangover. So there we go.
Nice plan.
Yeah, that's it. Growing a vineyard. The wine was awful. Zoe would drink it instead. So in 2021, our vineyards have always been quite magical, quite nice places when you go abroad. Certainly English wine hasn't been there for the last 20 years, but through a number of factors, it's all improving going that way. So after farming 20 years arable farming, I think it's getting harder with climate change, global warming, government trade deals, etc.
I mean, dare I say, one of the bonuses of climate change is that English wine is now getting more attractive.
We're all going to die a horrible hot death, but however, nice wine for the last 5 years or 10 years, what it is. Yeah. But that's exactly right. We're seeing wine regions around the world, us, Norway, Oregon, they're all coming online. And these wine regions, which were established for the last 100 years, are really struggling now to produce high quality wine because the temperature's gone a bit weird. So, I'm not pro-Trump, but if global warming happens, then you'll find me up here.
And the Romans had vineyards in this area 2,000 years ago. So, because apparently it was uncommonly warm at that time as well.
Right.
That was it, and it's quite a cultural thing about the Romans. They always, because the English drank far too much beer, they decided. So the Romans, when they came across to try and to embrace that kind of culture, they tried going wine. But the rumour has it the English wine wasn't actually that nice, and they had to bring in the French and the Italian wine and blend it with English just so the English would drink it. So whether how true that is, I'm not too sure.
So, I mean, the Romans did so much for us, didn't they? Yeah, then we kicked it all into touch.
What did the Romans ever do for us?
Yeah.
Sorry, you said you converted from arable to a vineyard, which sounds very simple. Is that as simple as stopping growing one thing and growing another, or did you have to do something to the soil? Did you have to give it some time to stop being a wheat field and become a vineyard, or how?
Yeah, so I got a book about how to grow vineyard, and they say first thing, hire a consultant, and then 4 years later you might do something. But I think I was fairly impatient, so we did go from a brown field at the start of the day, back in 2021 in early May, to having 13,100 vines by the end of the day. So a very efficient German team came across, and planted 13,100 vines in a day, even stopped for a few beers at lunchtime. And then by the end of the day, myself and Zoe were laughing hysterically that we suddenly had 13,000 plants we had to go and look after and put hair guards around it and put posts around it and the rest of it.
So how many people did that in a day?
Only about 3. So it was a big tractor on the front with a big subsoiler leg, and then just a big wheel behind it almost, and the wheel just clicked over every metre and put the vines in. So they soon flew on. They reckon they can plant about 25,000 a day if they really go for it, individual vines. So.
Wow. That is just stunning.
It's a hell of a job as well, incidentally. These guys, they start in the UK, and then they were heading to Europe, then they go to North America, South America, flip round to South Africa, and then do New Zealand and Australia at the end of it. And they do that for about 6 months of the year, just planting in the most idyllic places in the world, and spend 6 months off just partying on boats and the rest of it, and then they start again in Europe. After that.
Tough life, isn't it?
I know, your careers counsellor at school, they never told you about these jobs, did they? You know?
Wow. So what about the soil? I mean, did you know that your soil was going to be suitable?
Yeah, I know your link for your podcast. So I don't want to talk for 3 hours about soil, but I could do. It's all about the soil. We're very lucky here. We're Jurassic limestone soil. So ultimately, when this land was formed 160 million years ago, Burgundy was forming at the same time, the Bordeaux left bank, parts of Napa Valley. So on the basis of that,
the Loire as well, presumably.
Parts of limestone there, yep, that's it. So we know vines and limestone go really well together. So that was a good starting point to go from there, basically.
Yeah, and presumably you picked this slope as well because it's facing the right direction.
That's it. So south facing, catch all the sunlight. A slope really helps because it pushes the cold air down to the bottom. We're about 70 metres up, so we're not too low, not too high. So it was kind of, you talk about these little extra 1%, which I think you're going to need to produce high quality wine in the UK, full stop. But up here, we're really lucky. We've got all these little 1%, so they all kind of went the right way, and it's all facing the right way as well, and the rest of it. So it wasn't a case of maybe, we could have gone and test planted some vines, but again, you'd have to wait 3 years before you got a crop, and by then the momentum might be lost and everything else. And we're very glad we did it because the establishment costs of vines, they've actually doubled since we planted due to the energy crisis going forward and everything else. So we're lucky when we did it.
Wow. It's just incredible.
So you planted in 21.
Yep.
So I know nothing about the life cycle of a vine. So you said you don't get a crop for 3 years.
Yeah, nothing happens quickly in the wine industry. They're all incredibly old, back normal gentlemen of a certain age, and they all don't worry, Tim, it'll be all right next year. So there's me running around. So we planted in 2021. So the first summer was 21, then 22, and if you're lucky, you get a harvest in your third summer. So that was after 23. And we were just really lucky. We had rain in the first year. We had that extreme hot weather in the second year, which really helped put the vine roots down. So they really got into the limestone. And then if you remember last year, it was a bit of a freakish year because the warmest 3 days last year in September. So I spent the whole of last year saying, we never get hot September days. And then come September, everyone got sunburn, which was fantastic for us. Again, global warming, sorry about that. But when you get the really hot days in September, all the lovely green leaves we've got out in front of us at the moment, it forces the sugars from the leaves into the berries. So last year we got a really early harvest, high sugars, high quality. And for our first year, our first ever wine, it's really critical to hit that first year to make a nice wine because it would define to a certain extent who it would be. If the first wine was awful, then I'd be growing them.
And you can get that from a short spell. You can get that from a short spell of good weather.
Yeah,
you don't need 6 weeks of...
you need lots of things to go right before you, but the critical time is September. So September's a really key month because you've got all those sugars in the leaf, the carbohydrates are all there. But vines are quite selfish. All they ever want to do is grow. Then this is why, while it matters, soil matters, you want to stress the vines towards the end of the year. So if we were in the lovely fen soil kind of thing, we'd have a lovely big vine, you would, and it'd look really pretty. But the grapes are really bitter because the sugars will never go down into the berries. So we're really lucky here in respects of the soil's really thin. So when it's an arable farm and it didn't rain for 2 weeks and I was pulling my hair out because the little crops had such a small root structure and they couldn't find the moisture, for the vines it's ideal because this time of year they're getting stressed. So only at that point do they transfer the sugars from the leaves into berries because they want the birds to come along and pick the berries and take the grapes away. Mm-hmm. So we're really lucky again how the soil profile up here is really good. So the first 3 years we're really lucky. So they don't always recommend having a harvest after 3 years because if you take too much off the vines early on, they haven't got the root structure and the trunk, they just die. You know, they're a bit like sheep in that respect. They just kind of give up and go home, and you end up scratching your head. So we're really lucky to get a harvest last year. And then the harvest this year, we've harvested already, and the yields have increased up to the right level. Again, we're really lucky. So they don't say until it's about year 6 or 7 to actually get a full potential of the vine kind of thing going forward. And you just have to manage that. But as a business side of it, that's fantastic, because it gave us a chance to open, establish, work out, you know, how we can handle people, how many people we can have up here and the rest of it. And it's finding and giving us a chance as well to get going.
Wow. So the further north you are in the northern hemisphere, the more precarious it gets, because you're kind of relying on that September time.
Yep, and that's key, September. And also, September's not too bad if the further north you go, because you've got longer days. But actually, it's probably the start of the season that's more problematic, and when you go further north, because if you get a frost in about end of April time, it can absolutely blitz your first primary bud, and then you're relying on your secondary bud. But you still got to look after your vines for the year, because the vines take 2 years to go. They're biennial crops, so they're forming the year before. So you can't even take shortcuts in that first year. So there are quite a few vineyards north of us, up in Yorkshire, but Yorkshire people are so proud. If you put the word Yorkshire in front of anything, they'll buy it and drink it or eat it, kind of thing. So the wine is a variable quality, but the fact it's got Yorkshire on the front of it, they'll drink it and buy it. It's good.
Jeffrey Boycott loved Yorkshire so much he moved to Bournemouth.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a bit like Sean Connery as well, isn't it? Loving Scotland so much in the US. So yeah, that's it.
So talk us through your grape varieties that you got.
So it's quite a finger in the wind to start with, guessing what kind of varieties to do, because you've got no idea with global warming and also what kind of taste coming forward. But luckily there is one great variety called Bacchus, which Tim, I think you said you've tried before. So that's coming quite popular, and it just loves the conditions here. So we've got Bacchus in front of us. It's a Muller-Frago Riesling parentage. It's called the English Sauvignon Blanc, as in it's got a lot of really tropical fruit flavours. And I'll give you guys a bit to try in a little bit, but it's really tropical fruit driven, which is fantastic it's nicely balanced as well.
So it originated from a blend of Muller-Thurgau and Riesling.
Yep.
So it originates in Germany.
Yep.
But I've never seen Bacchus for sale in Germany.
No, see, now it's too warm in Germany to be grown, which is interesting, because they're not getting the cold evenings, so they're not having a nice balanced white wine. Because when you want a white wine, you want the sugar and you want the acidity at the same time. You know, you want a bit of a slap and a tickle almost at the same time. And laughing there, Justin. So you want that nice balance going forward. And in Germany now, the evenings are so warm, they call it what's called a flabby wine, and it's just too sugary. It's just like having a bit of a milkshake almost, a fruit juice almost. So you want that acidity. So we're quite lucky again being inland, so we get the nice cool evenings. So we keep the acid levels nice and high. So when we picked the white grapes last week, the acid levels and the sugar levels were high. So hopefully we can make a nice balanced wine. So that's the Bacchus variety. We've also got another white wine called Ortega as well. So we blended those two together last year to make our first crush, which is our first ever wine we brought out. And that did very well. So,
is that common practice to blend those two? I've not seen it.
Yeah, that was it. It's a bit of a... we only did it because, again, back to the first 3 years, we didn't have enough wine to fill up a vat on its own. So the first year we just said to the winemaker, just please make a nice wine. So they blended the two together, and fantastically it came out really, really nice. So what we're probably going to do is keep those two varieties together forever and just call it the Rutland Vineyard field blend, if you like, the Bacchus and the Ortega. So we love Bacchus, but I think the Ortega just dampens it down a little bit, because some people say Sauvignon Blanc's just a bit too much to take. Yeah, just a bit too much and too in your face, especially the New Zealand type. It's really strong. It's a bit marmitey. Yeah. The Ortega dampens it down and gives it a bit of longevity, which is fantastic. And then two red varieties. We've got Pinot Noir Precoce, which is early maturing Pinot Noir to make a nice light red. And then we've got Cabernet Noir, which is a disease-resistant variety. It's quite interesting. They fire in their vineyard, so I don't have to spray it at all. And it produces these lovely, deep, dark red berries, so we can hopefully make a bit of a stronger wine with that one. And then finally, we've got the two red grapes in Champagne. So we've got a Pinot Noir clone, 459, which is especially for sparkling, and Pinot Meunier. And we're going to make either rosé or sparkling out of them, depending on what the market is, depending on what we've got in stock, and depending on the year as well.
So don't you need Chardonnay for Meunier, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay? It's a classic.
You do that. So that's the holy trinity for Champagne. So what we've done, we've picked the two red varieties, and then you can make a Blanc de Noir out of that, white from blacks. And the reason we haven't grown Chardonnay up here is Chardonnay, it buds, it wakes up about 10 days earlier before any other variety. So again, back to where we are right now, frost is the really, really big risk. So if we get that frost in about end of April time, I've got to wake Zoe up and the team up about 2 or 3 in the morning. So we're going to go light 1,500 candles in the vineyard. Yeah. And their second word will be off, won't it? So it'll be me on my own out there. So I thought, well, I'll just save my work here as well. We won't grow Chardonnay, but also what we could do is we maybe could buy some Chardonnay, and if we ever wanted to make a classic champagne style, we could do that. But with the Pinot Meunier and the Pinot Noir, we can make a nice rosé and a sparkling, so it ticks both boxes.
The first time I ever heard somebody say that about lighting candles in vineyards, I thought they were joking. But that really is the case.
That's
it's
it.
Like, to think you have to
It's
keep
all about
them
air
warm.
movement, isn't it? So if you've got a bottle of wine with a chateau on the front, what you can do is get your helicopter pilot to fly up and down. You can, because it's all about air movement. So that's what they do. They get their helicopter, private helicopter, to fly up and down the vineyard for air movement.
What in Bordeaux,
And that
presumably.
prevents the frost from...
Yeah, that's it, because it keeps the air moving at the moment.
Yeah.
So, and Jenny, incidentally, who works for us, used to fly helicopters for the army. So therefore, I've just got to go and find a helicopter somewhere in Rutland. So,
So there is a connection to Camel Valley, because Bob Lindo was a pilot
oh, okay, yeah,
in the Air Force.
So he's, as you say, he's fantastic. People like Bob Linder, even when he started, even before I planted the vine, I just sent him an email, I think, before we planted, saying any hints, and I couldn't believe he took time to reply. And I think everyone in the English wine industry is really helpful. It's kind of ironic, because I think farmers who often aren't in competition don't tell each other anything. We're always kind of against each other or trying to work out what each other's trying to do. But the vineyard industry, where you are against each other, everyone's just very open, because I think we're all trying to raise the expertise or the knowledge if you can do.
Sure. So give us some of the maths then. So what will one plant produce? Like, how many bottles would one plant produce?
So when we get going, we roughly aim for 1 bottle per vine. Some varieties a little bit more, some varieties a little bit less. So the backers in front of us here, hopefully a bottle and a bit per vine. The Pinot Noir Précoce for red wine will be about half a bottle per vine. Now that doesn't sound very sensible economically and fair dues, but if you're going to make a red wine, you have to make it good. If you make a bad red wine, you can't give it away. Not even the chip shops in Stanford will take it. It's that.
Yeah.
So it's really key to make a nice red wine. So we kind of said at the beginning, oh, look, let's just try to make a nice wine the best we can, rather than try to make lots of average wine.
Wow. So you're talking like ballpark figure, 10,000 bottles of wine?
Well, hopefully when we get going, we've got 16,100 now, because we went and planted 3,000 more last year. And as soon as I get brave enough to say to Zoe, we're hoping to plant some more next spring as well. We really like the disease-resistant variety on the end. And we might put some Pinot Gris in as well, because that can be good for sparkling and still as well. And it seems to be doing well in these cool viticulture climates as well. So at the moment, we've got the potential hopefully to make 15,000 bottles, but I could see us getting near 20 hopefully when we get fully going.
Wow.
Yeah, and I say Zoe will only drink half of that. So.
Oh dear.
So 20,000 bottles sounds a lot, but would that make you a bottom 5% producer for the UK or a 20% producer?
I think the average size now is 4 hectares. So what you see at the moment is about the average size vineyard in the UK, but it's all like damn lies and statistics. Some vineyards down south are, they're 20, 30 hectares really are going, and then some vineyards are a couple of old boys on a retirement policy. So there's a lot of range in there, and it's quite an interesting market as well. You either come in from 2 angles of in the industry. You're either a very, very rich person who's just got a bonus in London and you just want something to go with your portfolio, so you go into it and money's no object, or you come in from the tight farmer's perspective as mine, when we try to use bales, twine and string wherever we can, kind of thing, to sort of save money where we can. So it's quite an interesting industry to be in from that perspective. But yeah, we're about the average size at the moment. But I think as as silly as it sounds, we had no idea what our wine's going to taste like. So we're really relieved. This first time has been huge for us. We're a lot more confident now in what we're doing. So now I can feel a bit more confident putting a few more vines in.
Yeah, it's not like growing wheat.
No, that's it. With most of my bad crops on the farm, I can just forget about them and plough it under and pretend it never happened. So there you go, and deny it all. But yeah, there was. But the whole ethos and the whole idea behind it was, as it's the day job still on the other side of the valley, we're just going to have a bit of fun up here. So we've always been ready for our aim, which is incredibly naive, but it's been fun doing it. So if it all ended tomorrow, look, it's good fun. We only serve up here saying coffee, cake, wine and cheese. So if you can't be happy with that, then God help you. And it's very good for me as well, because all the leftovers every Sunday come home. So there you go. So every Sunday night you'll find me in front of the TV eating the scraps, which I'm quite happy with. So,
But you must get plenty of exercise, because if I lived on wine, cheese, cake...
Well, you have seen 16,000 pints out there. That's
So in terms of maintenance and keeping on top of it, I guess some crops you plant them and almost forget about them until you pull them out of the ground. How does that compare with vines?
Well, I think I'll say a farming hat on. I think I'll just stop you there. Farming it's a bit more tricky than that, especially given the weather the last couple of years. But I'll let you gloss over that, Justin. Everything's done up here by hand. We'll stick to the vines for now. So everything is done by hand. So it is really labour intensive. Like, just for an example for you, this September we saw the long-term forecast wasn't very good opposed to last year. Last year we had lots of sunshine, natural ripening. We were okay. We got to start September and it's just cloudy and grey. So what we had to do is leaf strip all around the vines around the fruiting zone. So suddenly overnight you've made a decision to leaf strip 13,000 plants, and also there's 2 sides in every plant. So there's 26,200 plants that need to be leaf stripped now. So as many, we've got 2 or 3 people in the kitchen kind of thing. It's a lot of work to do. So all we have to do is go out there and just spend a few longer evenings kind of thing. But it's really critical for us that we strip all the leaves away, especially on the red varieties.
And that's by hand?
All by hand, yeah. So that's it. And all the winter pruning, all this greenery we've seen.
Secateurs by hand?
Secateurs, no, by hands. That was leaf stripping.
Oh.
But secateurs-wise, we'll be in the vineyard in January, and each of these 16,000 plants will need hand pruning and decision-making as well about next year's growth as well. So there's quite a lot in that respect to do as well. So yeah, it never really stops. Once you get to one end of the vineyard, you start again at the other because it needs doing quickly at the other end kind of thing. So I think going forward, we might need a bit more labour and work out how we can do it. We're just about keeping up at the moment.
So what labour have you got at the moment?
Oh, we've got my brothers come back. He helps out the farm and up here as well. We've got lovely Jenny who flies helicopters with the army. So she's a whiz also flying up and down the rows. Some of the guys in the little tractors, they get a bit, it's a bit narrow these because, when you're in a big tractor in the road, everyone gets out of your way, which is fantastic. But when you're going up and down these roads, these vines don't get out of the way. But saying after Jenny's been flying helicopters previously, she can go up and down drinking coffee on the phone, which is brilliant. So got my brother, got Jenny, myself, and Zoe goes in the vines as well where we can. But we're also saying this is the day job's still on the other side of the valley, and with a young family as well, it's not too easy to balance. But it's a lovely place to be. You come up here on like a May or June day, listen to you guys, your podcast in your ears, and walk up and down the vines, and before you know it, you spent an hour up here, and it's okay.
So talk us through your typical day then. What time are you up in the morning?
Well, I was saying I'm still arable farming, so we're still wheat for Weetabix and barley. Yeah, that's it. Well, not too arable farmers, so we're sensible time. No, we start at 8, so we're 8 till 5 on the farm. And then if I can come up here for a couple of hours kind of thing at the end of the day, that's nice. And I get to come and play up here on Saturdays. And we do tours every Friday throughout the summertime. So we've got a couple of tours next couple of days. We're just extending summer a little bit. But so yeah, we tours are lovely. We get people a chance to show them the soil profile, the grapes that's growing out there. So and they come back in and try the wine afterwards.
So what's your goal with the tours? Education?
Yeah, I think word of mouth. This is a complete career change for me in respect that I spent the last 20 years shouting at people, get off my land, and now I've got to go and apologise and say, please come back and buy some quite expensive English wine, but it is nice. So it's quite a key change in that, and it's another skill set. And saying Zoe as well, it's something completely new for Zoe, welcome to Barn up here. And we couldn't have done it either without Lizzie and Jenny in the kitchen and kind of and the vines. And these people we didn't know before at all. So again, it was a bit naive jumping into it, but a bit feet first. But the idea was we just want to have a bit of fun.
What about running this aspect here, like the social part?
That's where Zoe and Lizzie and Jenny come in, because they're the funny ones. I'm just the labourer out there in the vines, which is nice. So it gets to bore people about soil on tours, which is lovely. So yeah, during the week we're open Wednesday to Saturdays, so that's quite nice. Wednesday, Thursday, Fridays, normally a lot of tea and cakes kind of sold, and people coming up here and we didn't know you were up here, which is fantastic. And then what we really love is they come back off on the weekend with their friends because they've discovered something up here. Because it is a bit of a we are a bit the only show in town regarding a vineyard commercially open at the moment, which is brilliant. But I think also the feedback from people is fantastic working up here. If you spend the whole time farming and on the internet on the roads, I think you can end up with a very grumpy old farmer, which most of them often do. So actually you come up here, it's really nice. People come over with a smile on their face. They actually want to learn about the vines and the rest of it. And now we've got the wine to back it up, which is really nice. Because we spent the first couple of years we've been selling English wine up here. So we've been essentially a pub selling English wine just to get the word out there. And I'm a little bit uneasy just talking about it and backing it up, but now we can actually point to our wines that have picked up a few awards as well, which has been fantastic.
Oh, right.
So
Tell us about that.
So yeah, Wine GB, they're they run they're the wine union for UK, and they do an annual contest. They do. So our first wine came out in May time, and the deadline's about a week later. But I thought, we'll put it in and see what happens, just to see if we can get any acknowledgement or recognition. And then it was classed as one of the leading white wines last year in the UK, which is fantastic. So it got a silver award nationally, and there weren't any gold awards awarded to to English white wines last year, which is fantastic.
Wow.
So that put us up there, and we knew it was quite nice, but it was fantastic to have a bit of recognition.
Which one won the silver?
So that's our first crush. So last year, our branding, if you like, or our name of our vintage last year was First Crush. So we have our First Crush White, which is sold out now. Our First Crush Red was sold out before Christmas time, probably. And then we've got our First Crush Sparkling, but we're doing that in the traditional method. It takes 2 years, at least. So it will be Christmas 25. So again, we're back to vineyards. Nothing happened quickly, I'm afraid. So the grapes we picked last year won't be ready until 25, our Sparkling. But they're probably our highest quality grapes last year. So we're really looking forward to seeing that one come back.
So how, when will the white wine be at its best? Yeah, and when will your red wines be at their best?
The good thing about English wines is you can drink them straight away. So there you go. It's they always say it's a sign of maturity, isn't it? You get a wine rack and you actually have wine in it. So, but the good thing is you don't need to keep English wine there. English wine is very fruit driven. It's very primary flavours. So, and it's often done in steel casks as well, steel barrels as well. So they're primary driven, so you'll get a lot of primaries like the Bacchus, you get a lot of tropical flavours coming through. But it won't particularly age, it won't get any worse, but it won't age because there's no tannins there to improve the flavour profile. And the same to a red to a certain extent. It's done on stainless steel again, so you get very primary driven, so you get lots of nice berry flavours coming out. But there's no kind of rich complexity coming through. You get the complexity through thicker skinned grapes you do, and then to mature thicker skinned grapes, you're going to need a lot more global warming. So there's no point me talking about varieties. There's no point me putting a Shiraz in here or Cabernet Sauvignon because they've got really thick skins and they love the heat. It can never be hot enough for them to a certain extent, and that's where you get the tannins. So when you make that wine, those flavour profiles can come out in years to come. So that's when someone will open it and say, "Oh, in 2 years' time, this will be lovely." And most normal people raise their eyebrows and go, "In 2 years' time, we'll have drunk another 20 bottles by then." Kind of thing.
Right? Yeah. So will you be laying down a few bottles just to see what they're like in?
No. Again, I think Zoe drinks most of them before they go out the door. So we're here to enjoy it. So I've kept a few bottles back. We have at the moment just for a bit of old time's sake. But even the wines we bought in earlier on, we call them our wines. We love them, kind of thing. We just wanted. I think alcohol for me, if it's in a pub or in a bar, if it's gin and tonic, if it's beer, it's often about people coming together and the rest of it. But if you can have it from the local area as well, I think that's fantastic. When you go abroad, it's often nice to try the local beer, local flavours. What's traditional around there. And then wine wasn't traditionally a thing in England, but you're seeing now, let's say in the south coast, on very similar soils to Champagne, chalk soils, they're winning award-winning sparkling down there. And then we're on similar soils here as Burgundy. So although we're nowhere near the Burgundy quality at the moment, given global warming, what's happening in 10 years' time, you just don't know. These vines should hopefully last about 35 years, maybe. So, they've got a chance of producing something quite special up here because we have got a really nice, lovely, unique site with everything going for us.
Sorry, how do you deal with the rotation? I know that's a way off yet, but if they're all planted at the same time, so presumably they're going to reach into their shelf life at roughly the same time, will you, by that time, be able to say, well, 5 years out, we're going to take out 50 rows and replant and just lose the capacity for a short time?
Well, coincidentally, I'm retiring about 2 weeks before that decision's got to be made. There's no way I'm doing this all over again. This has been hard enough first time round. But what they apparently do, they graft a new variety onto it. So they cut off the top and keep the roots and actually use the root stock that's already there. Because it's not actually the roots that get knackered to a certain extent. It's more the trunk and it's the crown at the top that lets disease in. That's often the problematic bit. So you can graft on new vines on there. How it would be done, I'm not really too sure, because again, the UK industry is quite young. So even these vines planted 20 years ago, they're still going at the moment. So no one's really experimented yet to do it in earnest going forward. Occasionally you see in supermarkets, you see on a wine, you see old vine wine kind of thing for a few pounds more. There's no reason for it to be £2 more. The reason they often do it is because the yields start dropping off at the end. So as a marketing exercise, they put old vine wine on there and they can sell it for a bit more plonk because everyone thinks, oh, that must be nice. It's old vine. But realistically, towards the end of their careers, the yields drop as disease comes in and the problem out there, and they can graft it on. What would happen here? I guess, as you say, different varieties will go at different times, but there's no way I'm doing that. So I'm out of here.
I was thinking 35 years.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm definitely out of here.
Well, we certainly won't be here to interview you when you do it.
I might be here laughing at somebody else, but it won't be my responsibility. So I'll be on my helicopter lessons flying up and down. So
fantastic. So what about are yours all bottle tops or corks?
All screw caps. They're more environmentally friendly, so you get a lot of spoilage with cork. One of the things I want to do when we get going is to say we'll be carbon neutral vineyard, which I think we're there already at the moment, because you look out at the moment, we've got all this carbon capturing. They're essentially, 13,000 hedges growing, and when in peak season, we've planted trees around the vineyard. We've got a grass clover mixed in between the vineyard rows as well, which is fantastic about capturing CO2. So I think we're almost there already. I'm just on the farm at the moment. There's lots of discussions about what kind of calculator you can use to be CO2 neutral. And no one, it's a bit like they're all commit with different plans and the rest of it.
Do you want to explain that a little bit? CO2 neutral, what that means?
So it's on the basis of a lot of wine in the supermarket shelves at the moment. You pick it up and you think, well, that's very nice. But if you just look at where it's from, let's say it's from Chile, and you look at the actual the heavy glass may be used as well. So the carbon footprint, especially on heavy glasses, is more when there's no reason to have a heavy glass wine. It's just associated in the past with quality. You pick up a Chateauneuf de Pape and it's heavy, and you think, crikey, I must pay £15 for this quite happily, or £25. So what we would love to do up here is produce wine, which we can say is certified carbon neutral wine. So you can actually drink wine to help the environment. I mean, that's got to be our tagline at the end of the day. And I think we're there already at the moment. So we'll be capturing, the vineyard will capture more carbon than it will be emitting, but I'm including the whole process. But even that's quite complicated. Where do you start?
Yeah.
Where do you stop kind of thing?
I mean, are you exporting it? I mean, if Chile's are exporting wine to UK, that's their biggest carbon footprint part of that journey.
Yeah,
surely.
well, look at Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
They sell
Yep.
thousands of gallons of the stuff over
Yeah,
there.
often it comes. They often in bulk as well. Sometimes about the glass, which does help on the cost of doing it. But actually, often the glass is the highest bit. So you often see wine now in cans going forward and things like that to try and get it down. For me, I quite like opening a bottle of wine. I think it's more, ceremonial. If you're often with somebody as well having a drink of wine, it's often trying to work out what the flavours profile is going to be going forward. So we sell it in the lightest glasses bottles we can up here, and the rest of it. Because I think the idea to be carbon neutral would be a nice selling point going forward. But we're saying we're just at the moment trying to find a calculator that I could use to get there.
That'd be great promotion on your website.
Yeah.
Having your own carbon footprint measurements.
And it's very easy to do because on the farm we use nitrogen because we want to get high yields, and it pays to grow economically sustainable crop as you can do with wheat. So we're using nitrogen to increase the yields to get to the maximum point. But there's no incentive for us not to use nitrogen up there. On the vineyards, we don't use any nitrogen at all. The fertilizers, the vineyards don't get fertilized granularly at all. We use a seaweed spray quite a lot up here. We're working with Omex, who are a fantastic company who do a lot with biostimulant. So we're using a seaweed-based biostimulant, and we're spraying that in the vineyard every 10 days. And my thinking behind it is if I can get the plant's immune system up the highest I can rely less on synthetic fertilizers. And given where we are, we're quite an open site as well. I'm only spraying about once a month at the moment when I should be spraying, according to the books, about every 10 days. But my theory is, and I've got my experience of using some of the plant fungicides on the other side of the valley, I don't need to be spraying when it's nice and warm up here and we've got a wind flow factor and there's no other vineyards around here. Why am I going through? Unfortunately, in the UK, often the fungicides are often sold by the agronomist, which is a bit of a problem, where in France and some parts of Europe it's illegal, they're separated. So the agronomist comes to the farmer, makes an independent recommendation and then doesn't transfer your chemical. The problem can be in the UK especially is the guy who walks the, or the lady who walks the vineyard will also recommend the spray. So once you get spray into your vines, it's very hard to get out. You have to be preventive. So they're almost trying to be very, they've got to cover themselves. They're almost coming up here trying to sell insurance against disease, because as soon as you get disease in your grapes, you're going to get very poor quality wine at the end of the season. There's no curative. It's all protective going forward.
So what are the major threats to the health of the vine?
So we've got botrytis, downy mildew and powdery mildew. They're the big ones. So botrytis is essentially fruit rot. So when the grapes go and grow and they go and get into clusters, that's when you get, if you've got disease on your skins, you can't get any spray on there at all.
Is that those little white blobby things you see?
It's kind of just more fruit rot. Yeah, it just goes off. This is just this rotting fruit. And then on the leaves, you can get powdery mildew and downy mildew. And again, once they're in the vineyard, you can't get them out. So they often last around for years. They can live in the soil, they can, and they're water spread as well. So again, preventative is really key going forward. So actually, it's kind of a dirty secret, especially in Europe, where the amount of pesticides used, especially in, they've got the Bordeaux mixture, copper and sulfur in the vineyards in France. They're both organic compounds, so you can be an organic farmer and put copper and sulfur on. And then the copper is one of the most deadliest things you can possibly put in the soil because it just kills all your worms. And it's now turning up in water supplies in France as well because of too much copper and sulfur going forward. So it's quite a complicated issue, because if you buy a bottle of organic wine, you think, well, they haven't used any kind of inputs at all. Where what's gone on behind it is often a bit tricky knowing what's being put on. So up here we're using less fungicides than we are, but we're using hopefully a seaweed spray that's helping to keep up the plant's immune system. And if we can keep up those phytochemicals and keep the plant's immune system going, then I can spend less money as well. So that makes me happier.
Oh, this might sound a really silly question. Are grapevines wind pollinated, or do you rely on insects?
No, they're self-pollinated, so they don't require insects at all. We've got some beehives in the vineyard, and we've got some lavender at the end of the rows. But the lavenders is to stop me falling over every time I go around the corner at the end of the rows, and the bees are just because they're pretty. We like the bees, so.
Oh, right. So you're not relying on anything?
Nope, they're self-pollinating.
Wow.
So yeah, in that respect, they can look after themselves quite well. It's just with the disease, again, in the UK, I think it's almost impossible to grow a decent organic wine in the UK because we do get these very damp conditions. The relative humidity is very high. We've got lots of moisture in the air. And I've essentially got 16,000 plants now, the same immune system. So, well, the organic actually 1,800 vines at the end don't at all, which is quite interesting. So I could talk to him about quite a lot. But there's a family called Peewee variety, and they're disease resistant. And there's about 15 varieties at the moment. So all these new wine regions in the world where we haven't got a signature grape already, they're planting a lot of these Peewee varieties. And you don't have to ever put any fungicide on them because they don't break down to powdery mildew, botrytis, or downy mildew.
God, that's amazing.
So are they engineered that way?
Yeah, that's it. They're bred that way from Switzerland. So if you think Pinot Noir is probably as a variety, it's over about 7,000 years old. And this variety at the end of vineyards back in the 1980s, so it's a youngster coming along there. But that's the other problem when you go to plant a vineyard at the beginning. There's over 1,000 different clones of Pinot Noir, which I had no idea about when I went into this business as well. So we had to get a bit of advice and look at what kind of clone as well, because once you've got the vine in there, as I was saying, it's going to last for 35 years. So again, it was a bit of a finger in the wind exercise, but it seems to be going well.
And in terms of picking or harvesting, is there a very narrow window when that has to be done? Or could you do it any time in October, or does it have to be, within a week or something?
Yeah, harvesting's a really interesting one. So we've only had two, so I'm by no means even an expert or even got a clue what exactly we're up to. When you go abroad, they've got these big mechanical harvesters, and they're fantastic. And they go up and down the rows, and on the big vineyards now, in really, like in Chile and Australia, that's what they do, and in France as well. But the UK is obviously a smaller one, and I couldn't justify getting a harvester up here. Even renting one would be very difficult because they have to come up from the south of England. So what we rely on is the pensioners of Rutland, who are very efficient and bribable with wine and lemon drizzle cake. So what we do at the moment is pick a good day about a week before harvest time when it's roughly ready, and then get people up here, and we have a community pick, which is fantastic. I say that, but we did this last week, and the forecast has got it completely wrong. We picked last Monday our white wine varieties, and it rained all day, but it was brilliant. We had about 80 people turn up in total. Admittedly, about 60 of them went home quite early, about 11 o'clock when they'd done a few hours. But we had 20 people stay and give us a hand, and we went and picked 5,800 vines last week, which was really good. And what we're picking for is sugar levels. So like on Clarkson's farm, they're always waiting for the moisture to go down before they go and harvest a crop. We're doing the opposite here. We're waiting for sugar levels to go up. So more sugar means more alcohol, more body to the wine. So what we're doing at the moment is walking the vineyard and looking after the sugars, and we're going to pick when the sugars reach a certain level, which we think they can make a nice wine. So that's why last year was so good, last September, that really warm weather. We were laughing, going, well, this...
And is that tested visually, or you have some kind of...
It's really simple. You squeeze the grapes and the juice comes out, and then you've got the refractometer, and the light measures the amount of sugar level in there. So it's a real basic thing to do. And we did this last year laughing about how easy this vineyard malarkey is. And then this year, this September, it's done nothing but rain. So we're just watching the sugar levels. They're still plateauing at the moment. We've still got another 6,000 vines up there we want to plant, but the sugars just aren't there at the moment. Wow. But the good thing is they haven't got any disease, so they can stay there a bit longer. And I think this is the last of the rain we're seeing at the moment. So we're looking to maybe pick it towards the end of next week.
And even 4 or 5 days of sunny weather will cause that transformation.
Yeah, that's it, because the vines are getting a bit stressed. They realise something's going on. The day length's getting shorter. Thanks to our soil profile, again, being quite shallow. They know that actually I want to transfer the sugars down there, but they just need that little push to get it over the edge. So they need to photosynthesize to wake them up almost. So they start thinking, crikey, I want to push that sugar down. If it's raining and cloudy, as it has been for the most of 2024, it's quite difficult to get that photosynthesis going. So hopefully next week, a bit of sunshine should hopefully increase the sugar levels. So we're monitoring the whole time.
What about regulation in UK? How does that compare to other countries, like what you can and you can't put in a bottle of wine?
I think there are some fairly uniform. We won't go down the Brexit line with some of your people that you have done, but since we've left Europe, we've copied all their rules anyway, haven't we? So nothing has really changed in that respect. There's no regulation regarding varieties, which is quite interesting, because most of Europe, you have to, certain areas, you're only allowed to plant certain varieties. Up here, it's like the Wild West, the UK, is you can plant what you want, where you want, which is quite good for someone like me, because I could play around a bit, where certain areas, you're only allowed to put certain varieties. But regarding what you're allowed to put out of wine, I think we've mostly copied that from the EU. And then also, I must admit, that's not an area of my expertise. When I started this, I've got a rough idea how to grow plants and look after. Mm-hmm. But the winemaking itself, so we pick the grapes here, and then 2 hours later they've been crushed, but they've been crushed off farm. There's a place called Define Wine, and they're the only place in the UK. It's a specialist winery. It's all they do 24/7. So they've got now a satellite store just down in Suffolk, about an hour and a bit away. So what we would be doing, we're picking our grapes, and then about an hour and a half after they've been picked, 2 hours, they've been crushed at their place. And then we'll go down there throughout the season and tell them what kind of flavour profile and what we want to aim for going forward and things like that. That's often quite a good fun day out here. You're never short of volunteers when you go down for wine tastings down there. So we'll have a little drive down there, and then they'll make the wine down there, bottle it and send it back up. The setup costs of a winery are fairly substantial as well, and given all the output costs that I've got to pay off in the next couple of years out here, we'll let someone else do that.
So you grow, but don't
process it myself. Yes.
Yourself.
Yeah, we had one rather tricky customer earlier on last year, I think he was, who just said, "You're just a grape grower, aren't you?" So there you go. Which I thought, well, fair dues, I probably am, but I'll take that. But yeah, that's it. So my expertise isn't in the winemaking. I think it's quite easy to make wine, but quite tricky to make good wine. And the price point of English wine is expensive. You're never going to get away from that. We've got a stupid tax system. We're low yielding and we've got high disease. So it's got to be good. So I looked for the best place I could do, which was Define Wine. They've got winemakers from all over the world. They've got a really good apprenticeship scheme going on. I love what they're doing. They're really easy to deal with. So we'll let them do that for a bit. I'm not ruling it out because the bigger we get, the more expensive it is to keep sending the wine with them. And they're not exactly on our doorstep, being an hour and a half away. But that first wine was so critical to get right. So we wanted the best people to do it. So we'll send it away for the foreseeable future. They do that abroad, don't they, with co-ops, I think, local co-ops. And we're still only 4 hectares at the moment. And saying the day job's still on the other side of the valley. I think if I went winemaking at 3 in the morning, I think it might just push me over the edge.
So in terms of volume, I don't know whether it be tons or cubic meters, but once you've done your harvest and fired it off, how much are you sending? Is it a lorry load, 10 lorry loads?
Well, saying that hopefully the year will increase as we go around. The trunks are getting thicker by the year, and as we can push the fruiting cane down as well, we can extend that as the plant gets bigger as well, which is fantastic. So at the moment, last year we picked a white varieties, and we had 7 big Dolaf boxes, which we've got a trailer behind me, and I probably quite illegally went across the Dartford Tunnel Bridge, praying my car wouldn't clog and break down going over it. So we managed to get the wine off there last year with 7 Dolaf boxes. This year we've just picked and we had 20. So that's fantastic. So we've increased our yield threefold.
Sorry, I don't know what Dolaf box is.
A Dolaf box is just it's a metre by metre box, metre by metre, 70 centimetres high. And what we do is we've got the picking baskets at the end of the road. People go down the rows, pick, and then they walk back to the end of the rows with a Dolaf box and put it in there. And they're stackable big boxes, like big bits of Lego they are, hollowed out Lego. So what we had 20 boxes of white wine grapes last week. That was put onto a lorry. The lorry took it down there, and then when they get there, they tip into a crusher straight away. And then it comes back with us to wine, hopefully next May time.
What about your labels? Have you got I haven't seen a bottle of your wine yet. Has it got the name of the grapes on the label?
Yeah, that's it. And we love telling a story up here, so you can probably tell we're enthusiastic what we do. So we've got Bacchus and Ortega on there, and then that's our field blend going forward. We've got a nature walk around the outside of the vineyard, and there's a variety board down there of all the varieties and the rest of it, so everyone knows what you're getting. This was the key thing, that the barn we're sitting in right now. We did what Clarkson's Farm did again. We were a few years ahead of them, actually. We did permitted development. It was already here, the barn. It's an old cattle shed, which is fantastic. And without the barn, I don't think I'd have done the project, because we really wanted to point to the vines out there and say, they're the vines, here's your wine. What questions have you got? And if you haven't got any questions, to drink and enjoy it, which is fantastic. But the barn was really key to open it up. And then we've stole ideas like the nature tray around the outside. So if people are having a dry spell, or if they're driving or whatever, they can come up and have a nice bit of coffee and cake, go for a walk with their dog around, and they can just go off again. It's a lovely bit of the countryside. So we say to people, we're quite happy people just rocking it, having a walk around and going off again.
Really?
When we're open.
Yeah. So that information all available on your website?
It should be, yeah.
So your opening times?
That's it, yeah. I update that every Sunday over a glass of wine and a bit of cake, so they got whatever's left from the barn. So
that'd be a good fun thing to do. Come here, have a glass of wine, bit of cheese, go for a little bimble around the
that's it.
I'm thinking of volunteering the current Mrs. Perry for picking duty next year. I think she'd like that.
Well, actually, we're picking the red grapes, we are saying, about 9 days' time. So that'll be on our website. So yeah, what we do, we get a nice big long table outside. It's tea and coffee you can have. We're going to do sandwiches this time as well, because we lost too many people with our white picking. So if the weather's not very good, we're going to bribe people with sandwiches and cake this time. But the idea is we come along, again, we're just after a communal thing. We love when customers come in and they know each other now, and they have a little chat, and the rest of it is quite nice. Growing up round here was always, you had the pubs, but outside the pubs you had Rutland Water, and that's about it. So this is quite a kid-friendly place. We do like the kids and families running around. We've got these Jurassic fossils on the surface of the vineyard as well. That's where we've got the dinosaurs in our logo. So the kids can go running around there looking for Jurassic fossils while the parents drink wine as quickly as possible. That's our business model set up, really.
Yeah. 8 days' time is perfect timing as well, because I'm going to be in France playing golf, so Julie will be bored.
The only problem is this podcast won't be going out for a couple of weeks, so everybody else won't get to hear about it. But saying that, Are there other times of the year when you're looking for people to come and help you?
Oh yeah, they can help by coming along drinking wine. That
Well,
helps.
there you
That
go.
helps me a lot, especially on a wet Saturday when we're up here playing cards on our own. But
What about labour?
it's not too bad. It's something we enjoy. I think we're going. I think certainly with the pruning, it's quite skilled. So we said in January time we've got to make a decision about next year's crop, and actually making the decision on the harvest 24, you're making a harvest decision about 25 as well, because again back to the vines take 2 years to develop. The rest of the year we're just about keeping it. But yeah, going forward, we've had a few students up with leaf stripping. We thought maybe going forward, but. We're managing okay at the moment, and my idea is probably long term. I'd like to spend more time up here. It's fun up here. Arable farming is good, but I've done it for 20 years, and it's getting harder. And up here is quite fun. You send it away with a smile on your face, which is nice. Where arable side, you just collapse at the end of the day often.
So next year you'll be looking for help September, October time for.
Yeah, for leaf stripping, that's it. Yeah, it's in the website and the website. We're on Instagram and Facebook as well, which is quite nice. But again, we've been quite a little bit shy going forward because we wanted to hopefully establish something up here. We wanted to do it well. We didn't want to open up with a grand opening and everything else and then not being able to back it up. So actually the first couple of years have been fantastic. We found some really amazing people to help out in the kitchen. We've worked out how to grow the vines ourselves, and we've kind of, that kind of progress has been about right. And as the vine develops and the yields go up, hopefully the business model can increase as well. But I said the great idea is we've got no idea where we're going to be next year. We had no idea where we're going to be right now going forward.
Brilliant.
And we want to keep that fun element if we can.
Yeah.
While the farmer's still paying the bills, this can be our fun bit.
So what's the best thing? The best thing that you've discovered about growing vines and making wine?
The best thing about wine? We've had some good parties up here. The parties are good fun. We've had a couple of weddings up here. So they've been quite proud. People want to come up here and get married on what essentially is a pretty big day. So we've got some space for the marquee around the corner. So we've had days up there being fantastic. And we have our annual staff party up here, which is good fun as well. So on a sunny day in July time, often, we are very sporadic. We'll suddenly, if we've had a good day, I'll nip to Stamford and go and buy everything the Mad Turkle Zardas can, and we'll come back and we'll sit out there on a long table until it gets dark about 1 a.m. and let's have some good parties there. And again, it's what we're trying to do up here. We've got that freedom to be a bit more open, a bit more playful, have a play around. Arable farming is brilliant, but it's very calculated. I know what those fields over there are going to be for the next 20 years, and it's all about chasing the margins because we're doing broadacre crops. So I've got to cover it across a lot of areas. Up here, we're quite small. We're a single-site vineyard. We can play around with seaweed a bit. We can do little bits and bobs because we know if we get into a bit of problem, we can get the sprayer out the next day and spray the whole thing the next day if need be. Going forward, if it suddenly becomes very wet going forward. And if we have to go and at least 26,000 plants, we can just about do it at the moment. So with that fun element still there, and with that freedom of movement still there kind of thing. Talking about Brexit.
What about what keeps you awake at night?
Not a lot. I'm just knackered. Honestly, absolutely knackered. After half a bottle of wine and walking 15,000 steps a day,
I bet.
But it's fun. They say, it's only work if you call it work. And up here, it's not work. It's good fun. I get hit by Zoe for saying that too quite regularly because she says it is work. But the people come up here with a smile on their face, and we've got a lovely site, a lovely view, and I think we've got potential into making some really good wine as well, which is fantastic for the local area because we love people coming up here and showing it off with their friends and the rest of it. And that's a little the pride thing. It shouldn't be. I don't think it's particularly my ego, but it's just lovely seeing people enjoy themselves up here, something we've done, which essentially I still see this as an old falling apart barn to a certain extent. So the fact people are coming up here having fun, it's enjoyable.
So as we're coming to the end, what advice would you give to somebody that was thinking of dipping their toes into this industry?
Oh, just give it a go. Come up here, have a chat with me. We had a chappie from Fine Shade Wood who's thinking of putting 9 acres in. He came up on Saturday, and I think he's pretty serious about doing it, kind of thing. I think if you can come up here and you're not too daunted by the workload and actually see it as an opportunity, then, and I think with global warming going forward, it's probably only going to go one way, regardless that we are getting more extreme weather, where these days are plus 30 degrees and more, and that's only going to help the vines going forward. And if you've got a nice pocket with soil as well, the selling side of it's pretty big as well, I dare say. If you've got some way to get rid of that wine, we're very lucky to have a barn up here. We're very lucky to have Ketton on our doorstep, being really helpful. And then around here, you've got some lovely towns as well. So that's a big factor as well. If you went to put the vineyard in the middle of Spalding on a nice bit of land, it'd be lovely. But if you haven't got those surrounded people, we're really lucky to have the local sport up here as well, which is fantastic.
Another reason to move to Ketton, Justin.
Yeah, and it helps with the carbon footprint if you're not distributing it very far.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we've had the George Hotel were very nice. They phoned up and asked if they could sell our white, which is fantastic to hear. But we'd already sold out by then, which is great. But yeah, local hotels possibly going forward, we can go down that route. We've had a few people in London as well inquire because often they want English wine in the menu, so we've got a bit of a story about the dinosaurs going forward as well. But at the moment, we'd love to sell the wine from here if we could do, just to get people up here. Just keep that exclusivity if we can do. But saying that's tomorrow's problem.
Yeah, but I mean, 20,000 bottles is not a huge.
It's a good night out.
It is, but there's 40,000 people in Rutland, so that's only half a bottle each.
Yeah.
I suppose you've got to take the kids out. But.
Well, they're only 11.5% English wine, so yeah, you can't get a hangover. So there you go. Start them young. They do it abroad, don't they? You see kids abroad just enjoying a little sip of wine, kind of thing. And if you take the magic out of it, it's more relaxed.
So
not that I'm agreeing with underage drinking, but growing up in Stamford, you kind of got used to it, didn't you? Drinking in the meadows. So there we go.
So I expect that has whetted your appetite to visit the vineyard. The tasting barn is open Wednesday to Sunday. No need to book. Just pitch up and enjoy some great local wine and cheeses. They also have coffee and cake and are happy for you to wander around their nature trail that they have created. If you're thinking of squirreling some wine away for Christmas, I suggest that you get in quick, as some varieties have already sold out. So that's a wrap, and thank you for listening to our latest pub natter. If you visit timothyives.com/pub natter, you will find photos, links, and more information about each episode. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and please subscribe to ensure you don't miss a pub or one of our amazing guests. The Pub Natter theme tune is by Tom Arnold. That was a Pub Natter broadcast.